Welcome to our channel. We're so happy to have you here. Don't forget to subscribe and help us hit our goal of 100,000 subscribers. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're diving into some of the rarest and most incredible historical photos you've probably never seen before. Stick around, because each photo we uncover tells a story that time tried to erase, but we're bringing it back. 5.8 inches of snow. This is a view looking down from 121st Street on 8th Avenue on the day after the big snowfall of 1947. All the war propaganda, all the screaming, lies, and hatred always comes from people who will not go to that war. George Orwell. Marilyn Monroe and Queen Elizabeth were both born in the same year, 1926. Here is a photo of the two meeting in 1956, when Marilyn was filming The Prince and the Showgirl in the UK. School buildings in the YMCA Camp for Palestinian Children are tents that have been patched and mended for years. Jordan Valley, Jordan, 1952. U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt shakes hands with a young Lyndon B. Johnson, while Texas Governor James Allred stands between them in Galveston, Texas, on May 12, 1937. Welsh spiritualist Colin Evans feigns levitation by jumping up and down in total darkness and filming himself with an infrared camera. Photo taken in London, 1939. Barber and Beauty Shop, Bedrock City, RTS 64 and 180, Valle, Arizona, 1987. Civil rights activists, freedom riders are beaten up by a mob after attempting a sit-in, Birmingham, Alabama, 14th of May, 1961. This is a photo of the head of the Statue of Liberty on display at the Champ de Mars Park in Paris during the 1878 Exposition Universelle. It was placed there to help with fundraising for the construction costs of the statue. Soviet officers examining the German tank Panzer Kampfwagen, V Panther, July 1943. A Swiss soldier mans an army outpost in the High Alps, where the war fighting between the Austrians and the Italians can be observed. 1918. Crash landing of a U.S. Navy Grumman F-6 F-3 Hellcat aboard the USS Enterprise into the carrier's portside 20mm guns. Lieutenant Walter Tuning, Jr., is seen climbing up the plane's side to assist the pilot from the burning aircraft. Pilot Byron Johnson escaped without injury. 1943. This photo, taken in 1910 at Mount Wilson Observatory, California, is one of the very first photos of Halley's Comet. It was the first time that it could be photographed, as it only appears every 75 to 80 years, and the last time it appeared in 1835, it could only be sketched. Paul McCartney carrying two of his kids. Beside him stands Heather, Linda McCartney's daughter from a previous marriage, and behind him is Christopher Lee. A surreal moment in the mid-1970s. This is a photo of the real-life Christopher Robin. Yes, his name is Christopher Robin. And Winnie the Pooh, named Winnie after a bear Christopher saw in the London Zoo. Winnie the Pooh author A. Milne, who was Christopher's father, was inspired by him to write the books. It was actually his mother who created the Winnie the Pooh world, saying, "It was my mother who used to come and play in the nursery with me and tell him about the things I thought and did. It was she who provided most of the material for my father's books." Japanese troops, after their conquest of Nanjing, between 100,000 to 200,000 people who were Chinese were murdered in the event known as the Rape of Nanking. This is a screenshot from the first TV drama, The Queen's Messenger, which aired in 1928. For context, that was the same year Mickey Mouse was introduced to the world. The production was an experiment between GE and a station in Schenectady, New York. And yes, television sets existed in the 1920s, but they were extremely rare and had very tiny screens. New York Department of Public Charities. Inspector speaking with Ida List, 8 years old, of 124 Ridge Street, September 16, 1913. Ida suffers from St. Vitus Dance, Korea. Her mother works and takes in sewing. Her father is an alcoholic. NBC's Meet the Press has had a lot of politicians and world leaders appear on the program over its 77-plus years on air, but you might not know that Fidel Castro was among them. In 1959, Castro appeared on the program while on a visit to the U.S. a few months after taking power during the Cuban Revolution. Below is a screenshot of him on the show where he claimed he wasn't a communist. These photos, taken in 1946, are the first photos of Earth taken from space. They were able to achieve this by launching a V-2 missile carrying a 35mm motion picture camera into space. The camera was protected in a steel case, which allowed it to survive when the missile crashed back down to Earth. The Kerman children with their French governess at a runestone, U-107, at the Antuna estate, Sweden. The inscription says, Gerlach had in memory of Hemming, his son, and Ernmund in memory of Holmfrid, his wife, and in memory of Unna, his daughter. No photos of the Titanic's grand staircase exist. Well, at least before it sank. The photos we see of the grand staircase are actually from the Titanic's sister ship, the Olympic, which had an identical staircase. The two ships were built side by side and were nearly identical. Herero in chains. During the colonial period in German Southwest Africa, now Namibia, the Germans brutally suppressed the indigenous population. At least 60% Herero and 50% Nama population were killed in the Herero and Nama genocide, 1904-08. The iconic Hollywood sign was actually built in 1923 to advertise the Hollywoodland real estate development in the hills below it. The sign was originally only supposed to be up for 18 months, but it became a visual symbol of Los Angeles. Throughout most of the golden age of Hollywood, the Hollywood sign read Hollywoodland, with the land part only being removed in 1949. June 3, 1981. Punk band, The Plasmatics, in a Milwaukee courtroom after singer Wendy O. Williams was arrested on indecency charges for simulating masturbation with a microphone during a concert and assaulting a cop. Charges were eventually dropped. Salvador Dali and Walt Disney might strike you as the unlikeliest of friends. However, the two were not only good friends who mutually admired each other, but they also had a lot in common. Here's a photo of them when Walt went to visit him in Spain in 1957. 13-year-old Barbara Kent, center, and her fellow campers play in a river near Ruidoso, New Mexico, on July 16, 1945, just hours after the atomic bomb detonation 40 miles away. Barbara was the only person in the photo that lived to see 30 years old. In 1939, Franklin D. Roosevelt became the first U.S. president to appear on TV. FDR gave a speech to open the 1939 World's Fair in New York, which was televised. You can see a screenshot of it below. It also wouldn't be the only time he appeared on TV. Some leaders of various nationalist women's organizations of Europe, Olga Bjorner, Gertrude Schultz-Klink, Toyoko Oshima, simply the wife of the Japanese ambassador to Germany, Pilar Primo de Rivera, and Olga Medici during the International Women's Meeting in Berlin, 7th October 1941. Much like we'd throw 90s, 80s, or zeros nostalgic-themed parties today, people in the 50s threw 1920s-themed parties. Below are a couple of photos from the 1950s of a 1920s-themed party, complete with everyone wearing period-appropriate costumes and the woman on the left doing the Charleston. A photograph taken by the American W.L. Sachtleben, depicting the victims of a massacre of Armenians in Erzurum on October 30, 1895, being gathered for burial at the town's Armenian cemetery. If you were on TikTok last year, then you might have stumbled upon a video of some younger people who didn't know that we used to have commercial supersonic planes. This is a photo of Queen Elizabeth on a chartered Concorde on her way back to London in 1977 after her Silver Jubilee tour of Canada and the West Indies. This Coca-Cola ad from 1900 features Hilda Clark, a light opera and dance hall singer who was the brand's first celebrity endorsement. This is a photo of the Champ de Mars nearly a decade later in 1887, and it may be hard to make out, but those are two of the steel struts of the Eiffel Tower, early in its construction.